Most machines are built with the expectation that they will serve some useful function, that they will operate for an extended period, that their designers and builders are making a commitment to a future in which the machine will be part of the technological landscape. But occasionally a machine is built knowing in advance that its existence will be temporary, that it has been designed for a specific and limited purpose, that its destruction or disposal has already been predetermined at the moment of its conception. The locomotive whose story this is was built in precisely this condition, a machine engineered not for durability or long service life, but for a specific task that would end in a foreseeable future, after which the machine would no longer be needed and would presumably be scrapped or disposed of. The context in which this locomotive was built was the Second World War, a period when industrial production was oriented entirely toward the war effort, and when machines were being built with the specific knowledge that the circumstances that made them necessary would end when the war ended. The locomotive in question was built for military railroad operations, ordered by the American military to provide the motive power necessary to move supplies and equipment in support of American forces. The military understood that when the war ended, when the military supply lines that the locomotive served were no longer needed, the locomotive would become surplus equipment, no longer useful for any peacetime purpose, and that the locomotive would then be subject to whatever disposition the military decided was appropriate for surplus military equipment. This knowledge of predetermined obsolescence shaped how the locomotive was designed. There was no reason to build for longevity. There was no reason to incorporate refinements that would extend the locomotive's service life. There was no reason to design the locomotive as if it would need to operate for decades in commercial service, because it was never going to operate in commercial service. It was built to operate for the duration of the war, to serve the specific military purposes that the war required, and then to be done with. The locomotive that resulted from this design philosophy was, in many respects, a typical American freight locomotive of the era. It incorporated standard components. It used proven designs. It represented the kind of straightforward engineering that commercial locomotives also represented. But the difference was in the attitude of the designers toward the machine they were building. Commercial locomotives were built with the assumption that they would be cared for, maintained, operated in ways that would preserve their value and extend their useful service. The military locomotive was built with the assumption that it would be worked hard, that maintenance would be whatever could be spared from more urgent military priorities, that efficiency of operation would be secondary to the immediate demands of moving cargo. The locomotives were built in substantial numbers, dozens or even hundreds of them, enough to supply the military supply lines that the American war effort required. They were shipped to where they were needed, put into service, operated by military personnel who had been trained to operate them, maintained by military mechanics whose training was adequate, but whose priorities were always the immediate demands of the war effort rather than the long-term health of the equipment. When the war ended in 1945, the locomotive faced the future that had always been predetermined. The military no longer needed them. The supply lines they had served were no longer being built. The purpose for which they had been manufactured had disappeared. The question of what to do with the locomotives had to be addressed by the military bureaucracy, and the options that the bureaucracy considered were limited. The locomotives could be sold to commercial railways, but commercial railways that had spent the war years operating diesel locomotives and that had invested in diesel infrastructure had no particular interest in taking on additional steam locomotives at the end of the war. The locomotives could be scrapped, their metal recycled into whatever industrial uses metal could be recycled into. The locomotives could be stored, preserved in case some future need for them arose. Most of the military locomotives were scrapped. They were sent to scrapyards, where cutting torches reduced them to metal that could be melted down and repurposed. The locomotives that had been built to serve a specific purpose, that had served that purpose for 3 or 4 years, that had accomplished the work they had been designed to accomplish, were now simply obstacles that needed to be disposed of, chunks of metal that had no value except as raw material for new production. But some of the locomotives escaped direct scrapping. Some were sold, at bargain prices, to small railroads or industrial operators that could still use them. Some were sold to railways in other countries that, in the post-war period, still needed whatever motive power they could acquire. Some were stored for years, occupying railroad yards, weathering, deteriorating, waiting for a decision about what would eventually be done with them. A handful were preserved, saved by railway enthusiasts or by railroads that recognized that the machines represented a historical record of the war effort, and that preserving one example might be valuable for future understanding. The locomotives that were preserved survived because someone, at some moment, decided that the machine was worth saving, that its history as a military locomotive, its participation in the war effort, its role in demonstrating American industrial capacity in a time of crisis, was significant enough to justify the effort of preservation. These locomotives became historical artifacts, documents of an era, machines that could be studied and understood as representatives of what wartime production had looked like. But the overwhelming majority of the military locomotives were scrapped. They were destroyed in the way that most machines are destroyed, returned to the raw materials that they were made from, rendered into metal that bore no trace of its previous form or purpose. The locomotives that had been built knowing they would be temporary became, in the end, temporary in the most complete sense, leaving no trace except in photographs and in the memories of the men who had operated them, and in the occasional preserved example that had managed to escape the cutting torches. What the story of these locomotives reveals is something about how industrial production is shaped by the circumstances of its era, how machines built for specific purposes carry the mark of those purposes in their design and in their fate. The military locomotives were built differently from commercial locomotives because they were built for different purposes, because the men who designed them understood that the machines they were building had a finite lifespan that was predetermined and limited. This knowledge shaped every decision about how the locomotives were designed and built. The military locomotives also reveal something about industrial waste and about the difficulty of transitioning industrial production from one purpose to another. When the war ended, the military had no further use for the locomotives, and commercial railways had no particular interest in them. The locomotives could not be easily repurposed for civilian use in the way that some military equipment could be. They were simply stranded, machines that had been built for a specific purpose, that had served that purpose, and that were now surplus to any need. The destruction of these locomotives was not a tragedy, but it was a kind of waste, the consumption of resources and labor to build machines that would operate for a limited period and then disappear. In retrospect, the military locomotives represent something important about American industrial capacity in the Second World War. They represent the ability to design and build equipment quickly, to manufacture in quantity, to deploy what had been built to serve the immediate needs of a military effort. They represent the commitment of industrial production to the war effort, the willingness to build machines knowing they would have a limited lifespan, the focus on immediate goals rather than long-term value. The locomotives that were preserved survive as reminders of this era, as machines that operated for the war and that continue to exist afterward as historical documentation. The locomotives that were scrapped have left no physical trace, but their existence and their destruction are recorded in the historical record, in the photographs and accounts and memories of the people who knew them. The military locomotive was built to be temporary. It was built knowing its purpose was limited, and its lifespan was predetermined. In that, it was unlike most of the locomotives that have been built, unlike most machines that are constructed with the hope that they will serve some extended purpose. The military locomotive was built for a moment, for an era, for a specific need. When that need ended, the locomotive's purpose ended with it. Some locomotives are built to last. Some are built to be beautiful. Some are built to be powerful. The military locomotive was built to be temporary. And in that temporary existence, in the brief service during the war and the disposal afterward, it served the purpose for which it had been designed, even though that purpose ended with its destruction.